Mötley Crüe has had a great run. I'm touring until I cannot move anymore. And then, after that, when they bury me, I'm still going to have a Mötley Crüe record playing up.
At the age of 73, Mick Mars stunned the public with explosive revelations against his former band, Mötley Crüe. From allegations of being cut out of his profit share to claims of calculated internal efforts to push him out of the band, Mars' statements ignited a storm. But what initially seemed like a personal grievance soon unraveled into a much deeper story, one that spanned decades of music, pain, and silent endurance. Born in 1951 in Terre Haute, Indiana, as Robert Allen Deal, Mick Mars grew up in a financially struggling household. Long before he became a glam metal icon, he spent nearly 20 years playing in obscure California bands, enduring rejection after rejection. That tough journey shaped the gritty, blues-infused guitar style that later defined Mötley Crüe. As a founding member in 1981, Mars gave the band more than just riffs, he gave them direction and identity. He even coined the name, Mötley Crüe, after a bandmate casually called them a motley-looking crew. While the rest of the group chased excess and trends, Mars focused on the music, bringing deep, blues-based riffs to hits like Kickstart My Heart, Dr. Feelgood, and Girls, Girls, Girls. Often the first to arrive at the studio and the last to leave, he kept notebooks of technical notes, and played most of the studio guitar tracks himself. Mars stood apart from the chaos, avoiding scandals, focusing on his craft, and dealing quietly with a debilitating spinal disease, ankylosing spondylitis, that caused chronic pain and limited his mobility. Despite multiple surgeries and metal rods fused into his spine, he continued performing live for over 40 years. On October 26, 2022, Mars officially withdrew from touring, citing health concerns, but made it clear he remained an active band member. However, the band's response created confusion. A new guitarist, John Five, was announced, and Mars was quietly removed from promotional materials. Within weeks, he felt sidelined and forced out without consultation. Despite remaining a 25% stakeholder, Mars discovered his profit share was being reduced to 5%, an alleged move made without his consent. In April 2023, he filed a lawsuit against Mötley Crüe, exposing not only financial grievances but also his claim that the band increasingly used playback and digital enhancements while he continued playing live, which ironically led to accusations that he was falling behind. Mars' lawsuit pulled back the curtain on the band's inner workings. He accused bandmates of trying to erase his contributions and silence his vote. He revealed he was forced to prove his ability to perform, something none of the others ever faced. Public support for Mars surged. Rock forums exploded with debate. Industry veterans like Dee Snider and Tracy Guns called his treatment a betrayal, and legal analysts predicted the case could set a precedent for aging artists and legacy bands. While the legal battle intensified, Mars took a different path. In February 2024, he released his first solo album, The Other Side of Mars, a furious, defiant, and deeply personal project blending hard rock, grunge, and industrial elements. The album was critically praised, with tracks like Loyal to the Lie and Killing Breed interpreted as direct responses to his ousting. Mars didn't tour due to health limitations, but the album climbed charts quickly, driven by passionate fans and physical sales. Critics applauded his ability to evolve musically while staying true to himself. In interviews, Mars remained calm and clear. He didn't attack his former bandmates, but he made his feelings of betrayal known. He emphasized that any future reunion would have to be about music, not money. He now spends most of his time in Nashville, focusing on therapy, composing music daily, and preparing a second album, expected in late 2025. That project is said to explore more electronic and ambient territory, marking another bold step in redefining his sound and independence. By 2024, Mars had become more than a sideline band member. He had emerged as a symbol of artistic integrity and resilience. As his 75th birthday approaches, there are growing calls to induct him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist. Younger musicians cite him as an influence, and YouTube and podcast channels frequently analyze his work, celebrating the quiet genius who never sought the spotlight but left a legacy too powerful to ignore. Mick Mars isn't looking to relive past glories. He's rewriting his final chapter not with nostalgia, but with new sound and truth. He may no longer be on stage with Mötley Crüe, but his story, and his guitar, are louder than ever. The physical pain and emotional solitude Mick Mars endured throughout his career is a truth the public has only recently begun to grasp. On October 26, 2022, Mars officially announced his withdrawal from Mötley Crüe's touring activities, citing health reasons that made it impossible for him to keep up with the band's demanding stage schedule. Importantly, he emphasized in his statement that he was not leaving the band altogether. He would remain an official member and retain his share in the group. This clarification was quickly picked up by major outlets like Variety, Billboard, and Rolling Stone, generating widespread attention and conversation among fans. However, shortly after, Mötley Crüe released a separate press statement announcing that guitarist John 5, known for his work with Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie, would replace Mars for the remainder of the stadium tour alongside Def Leppard. The language in the press release raised eyebrows. It failed to mention whether Mars retained his membership or royalty rights and instead portrayed him as someone who had fulfilled his mission, which many viewed as dismissive and vague. What intensified concerns was how the band handled media in the following weeks. Promotional materials for the tour completely removed Mars' image, and fans noticed that John 5's integration into the lineup was swift and seamless, sparking speculation that the replacement had long been planned. Publications like Ultimate Classic Rock even suggested the move had been orchestrated behind the scenes. Mars, who had always maintained a low profile and avoided personal or non-musical drama, found himself increasingly sidelined. His tendency to stay out of internal politics, rarely attending financial meetings or band governance discussions, meant his influence within the group had gradually diminished, despite still owning a significant stake in the Mötley Crüe brand. Following his withdrawal from touring, Mars stayed silent. He did not make public statements, refused interview requests, and avoided any involvement in the band's ongoing promotional activities. Yet, by January 2023, it was revealed that Mars had quietly sought legal counsel in Los Angeles and was preparing formal legal documents to assert his rights within the band. Deadline later confirmed this, indicating that Mars was not accepting the situation passively and was working on a structured legal response. Meanwhile, the band's remaining members began controlling the narrative. Nikki Sixx made vague posts on Twitter emphasizing team spirit and the new high-energy lineup, without once mentioning Mars. Tommy Lee posted rehearsal photos with John 5, and Vince Neil remained entirely silent. These actions, or lack thereof, were viewed by many fans as deeply disrespectful, especially given Mars' more than 4 decades of loyal service to the band. As the situation became more public, veteran rockers like Dee Snider, Twisted Sister, and Tracy I. Guns, L.A. Guns, came to Mars' defense, calling the band's treatment of a founding member a betrayal. Across forums like Reddit, Metalcore, and Blabbermouth, fans and analysts began dissecting the legal and ethical implications of the internal drama. What started as a touring withdrawal had clearly evolved into the opening chapter of a much more serious and complex internal conflict, one that would soon play out in court and in public opinion. The conflict continued to escalate, culminating in the official filing of a lawsuit that shook the rock music world. On April 6, 2023, Mick Mars filed a lawsuit against Mötley Crüe in the Los Angeles County Superior Court, marking the beginning of a highly public and unprecedented legal battle in the band's history. According to Variety, Mars accused the remaining members of conspiring to oust him both illegally and immorally, claiming they had slashed his profit share and attempted to strip him of decision-making authority within the band. At the center of the lawsuit was a contentious dispute over ownership. Mars asserted he still held a 25% stake in Mötley Crüe, but his share had been unlawfully reduced to 5% without any formal agreement or his signed consent. His lawyer revealed that this reduction was orchestrated behind closed doors by the other band members, their private attorneys, and the band's CFO, despite Mars never signing any resignation or rights transfer documents. The lawsuit also unveiled several behind-the-scenes revelations that had never before been made public. In a statement quoted by Rolling Stone, Mars described being forced to undergo personal performance tests as a condition of staying in the band, calling it both humiliating and degrading, especially given his status as a founding member. He emphasized that no other member of Mötley Crüe had ever been subjected to such treatment. The legal documents further alleged shocking claims regarding the band's live performances. Mars accused Mötley Crüe of increasingly relying on playback and digital enhancements to maintain their stage image, alleging that Vince Neil often lip-synced during tours and Tommy Lee used pre-programmed drum loops. Mars maintained that he was the only member consistently performing live, ironically, a factor that made him appear out of sync with the rest of the band. After the documents became public, Mötley Crüe swiftly issued a formal response denying all accusations. The band's attorney claimed that Mars had experienced a noticeable decline in his performance abilities, struggled to remember songs, and could no longer keep pace with the band's demands. Nikki Sixx followed up with a series of tweets claiming rehearsals had been disrupted by Mars and defending the decision to replace him as necessary to uphold performance standards. However, public reaction wasn't entirely in the band's favor. Many fans on forums and social media platforms argued that Mars was being unfairly scapegoated, accusing the band of placing commercial gain above integrity. Prominent figures in the rock industry, including journalist Eddie Trunk, suggested that Mars' unique playing style was central to Mötley Crüe's identity, and that continuing without him diminished their core sound. Loudwire highlighted that Mars' claims reflected a broader trend of internal restructuring within legacy bands aimed at maximizing profits. A critical component of the lawsuit also dealt with brand ownership. Mars asserted that he remained a legal co-owner of the Mötley Crüe name, and had the right to vote on major decisions. The band's continued use of the name without his approval, he argued, violated long-standing partnership principles. His legal team even considered filing a motion to prevent the band from using the name unless a clear and binding agreement was established. The legal battle began to ripple beyond the courtroom, affecting the band's business relationships. Industry insiders reported that several corporate sponsors from past tours reached out to clarify the situation. International event organizers such as Live Nation were also said to be monitoring developments closely, given the potential impact on future contracts and tour viability. By mid-2024, the lawsuit had yet to be resolved, but the damage was already done. Regardless of its legal outcome, the revelations brought forth by the case had undeniably altered public perception of the band, and reshaped Mick Mars' legacy forever. The public fallout with Mötley Crüe may have tarnished the band's image, but for Mick Mars, the situation represents far more than just a legal dispute. It is a personal stand to defend his honor and legacy after over 4 decades of shaping American hard rock. While the band moved forward with a new lineup and chose to remain silent on the controversy, Mars took a radically different path. Instead of retaliating through interviews or social media, he let his music speak, launching his first independent solo project under his own name, marking a bold new chapter in his career. In February 2024, amid the ongoing legal battle, Mars released his debut solo album titled The Other Side of Mars. This was the first time in his career that he created a body of work entirely separate from the Mötley Crüe brand. Featuring 10 tracks, the album blends hard rock with elements of grunge, industrial, and alternative metal, a clear departure from the glam metal sound that had long defined the band. Mars began working on the album in mid-2022, devoting himself entirely to studio time in Nashville. He teamed up with renowned producer Michael Wagoner, known for his work with Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, and Skid Row, to ensure top-tier sound quality. The project was kept under wraps until late 2023, when Mars began teasing behind-the-scenes glimpses on social media. The album's team included an impressive lineup of seasoned musicians: Paul Taylor on keyboards, from Winger and Alice Cooper, Jacob Bunton on lead vocals, Cornbread on bass, and Ray Luzier, from Korn, on drums. The involvement of these high-caliber artists underscored that this was not merely a personal outlet but a serious, strategic effort to redefine Mars' musical identity beyond Mötley Crüe. The album's opening track, loyal to the lie, immediately drew attention with its aggressive riffs, pounding rhythms, and raw emotional tone. Critics widely interpreted it as a pointed response to the accusations made against Mars by his former bandmates. In an interview with Guitar World, Mars explained, "I don't need to write a statement, I just let the guitar do the talking." Other standout tracks, including Killing Breed, Right Side of Wrong, and Ready to Roll, explored themes of betrayal, resilience, and defiance. The album was met with widespread acclaim. Kerrang! Magazine called it the most personal and honest album of Mars' career, while Loud Wire praised the fusion of his distinctive guitar style with a more modern, aggressive sonic landscape. YouTube music analysts from channels like Anderton's Music Company and Rick Beato dissected Mars' solos, noting that even at 73, his technical proficiency remained elite. Fan response was equally enthusiastic. The Other Side of Mars quickly climbed to number 5 on the iTunes Rock chart and number 18 on the Billboard Top Rock Albums chart in its first week. Notably, most sales came from physical copies, a testament to the loyalty of his fan base and their desire to support him directly. On platforms like Reddit and Facebook, many fans declared it one of the best rock albums of the year. Due to ongoing health challenges, Mars stated that he would not tour in support of the album, but he announced plans for several remixes and a behind-the-scenes documentary chronicling the album's creation. In an interview with Metal Edge, he shared, "I don't need the stage, I need the studio. That's where I truly live." Looking ahead, Mars confirmed he is already working on a second solo album, expected to be released by the end of 2025. This next project will take a more electronic direction, incorporating ambient and industrial rock influences. True to form, he revealed he is collaborating with an emerging female artist from the alternative scene, though her identity remains under wraps. With this new chapter, Mick Mars has proven that his artistic vision, integrity, and legacy are far from over. He's just getting started. Collaborating with an emerging female artist in the alternative scene, whose name has yet to be disclosed, Mick Mars continues to challenge himself creatively, striving to remain completely independent of any past legacy. The Other Side of Mars is more than just a debut solo album. It serves as a personal artistic manifesto, proving that Mars doesn't need the fame or brand power of Mötley Crüe to maintain his influence. While many of his peers settle into retirement or reunion tours, Mars boldly stepped out of the band's shadow to assert his own identity. The unexpected success of his solo work reaffirmed his status as a veteran artist with enduring relevance. Following the release, Mars re-emerged in the public eye through a series of press interviews in 2024 and early 2025, gradually evolving from a quiet, reserved musician into a candid voice sharing insights into long-hidden internal events. In the June 2024 Rolling Stone cover story, Mars confirmed the deep sense of betrayal he felt from his former bandmates, saying, "I was drained like a broken machine and then thrown away. That's not how brothers treat each other." Despite this, he refrained from bitterness or personal attacks in interviews with Guitar World, Classic Rock Magazine, and Music Radar, where he candidly expressed his disappointment in how his time with Mötley Crüe ended. When asked about the possibility of a reunion, Mars didn't shut the door entirely but made it clear that any future collaboration would have to be driven by musical passion, not money or contractual obligations. "If one day we play together again," he said, "it has to be for the music, not for a contract or a festival lineup." This quote quickly spread across media outlets, especially since Mötley Crüe continues to perform with a new guitarist in Mars' absence. Mars' reflections focus not on vengeance but on growth and recovery. He now spends most of his time in Nashville, undergoing physical therapy to manage his chronic condition while continuing to compose music in the studio. Though he no longer performs live, he practices guitar daily as both a creative outlet and form of mental therapy. Today, Mars is seen as a reclusive yet highly respected figure in the rock community. Younger artists at major festivals like Hellfest in France and Aftershock in the US have openly cited him as a major influence, particularly in terms of guitar technique and production philosophy. On YouTube and across music podcast platforms, classic rock channels routinely feature deep dives into his solos and albums, celebrating how he has preserved his unique artistic voice across decades. Looking ahead to his 75th birthday in 2026, several veteran music journalists have proposed that Mick Mars be nominated for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not just as a founding member of Mötley Crüe, but as a solo artist. According to Music Business Worldwide, Mars' influence has only grown since the lawsuit, reflecting a broader public shift toward valuing transparency, integrity, and artistic dedication over superficial glamour. Mars himself rarely speaks of awards or accolades. When asked in a 2024 Metal Hammer interview how it felt to reveal the truth, he responded simply, "I didn't speak to win, I spoke to stay true to myself." As of now, Mars remains silent on any potential collaboration with Mötley Crüe. Legal negotiations are ongoing, though no terms have been disclosed. For the moment, he remains firmly committed to his independent path, stating that he will only share new updates when I'm ready, mentally and artistically. Though no longer performing on brightly lit stages with the band he helped build, Mick Mars continues to hold his place as an irreplaceable figure in American rock. At 73, he hasn't faded away. He's rewriting his legacy with the unfiltered voice of his guitar and the unwavering clarity of his convictions. Though he no longer stands on brightly lit stages with the band, Mick Mars remains an irreplaceable figure in American classic rock. At 73, he has not chosen to fade away. Instead, he is rewriting his final chapter through the raw power of his guitar and the honesty of his words. His journey is a testament to resilience, authenticity, and the enduring spirit of rock.